Indeed, well, with the Kremlin increasingly isolated by economic sanctions and Russian society starting to feel the bite, Vladimir Putin faces a growing domestic problem. How much are his people and those in his inner circle willing to pay for the cost of this war? We've heard from one of President Putin's advisors who's growing increasingly concerned by the behaviour of his boss. Let's go live to Moscow and our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn. And Dominic, what did the advisor have to say to you?
Andrei Kortunov is somebody who we are used to on our televisions justifying his boss, or his president's actions. Not so much an apologist, but certainly defending Vladimir Putin in Syria and in other arenas of action. Today, though, he's very critical of the president. He said he's in shock, he's depressed, and he's not the only one, I think. There are those in the foreign policy establishment who can't understand what Putin is up to and, frankly, are stunned and in disbelief that this invasion happened. This is what Andrei Kortunov had to say to me earlier.
For a long time, I thought that a military operation was not feasible. It was not plausible. You know, I had my own cost-benefit analysis, and even if you put aside all other considerations, I thought that to go into Ukraine is not in Russia's interests, keeping in mind the collateral damage which is likely to happen after such an operation. But apparently, you know, my cost-benefit analysis did not coincide with that in the Kremlin. So I had to wake up to a new reality, and I have now, not just me, but all of us will have to live in this new reality.
That's your dry foreign policy analysis. How do you feel about this today? What are your emotions today?
Well, you know, I am trying to keep going. I'm trying to continue doing what I'm doing, but of course I'm depressed. You know, all of us are depressed, and I think that it's very embarrassing for all of us, not only because we turned out to be wrong, but also because, of course, you know, Russia and all Russians will be in a difficult position in many countries, not even only Western countries, but all over the place for a long time. And there are many questions to which we do not have answers.
And does that make you wonder about the state of your president's mind?
Well, you know, he has his own vision. Maybe, you know, he believes that this damage is acceptable. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
And you're someone who's supported Vladimir Putin in the past where you've thought fit and you advise the Kremlin, and today you're depressed about the way things are going.
Yeah, of course, you know, I'm depressed. I think many of us are depressed. I think that there are many people in the Kremlin who should be depressed because the price will be substantial.
Mark, what he said afterwards was that he thinks that those advisors around Putin who've been pushing for better development, for prosperity, have basically been beaten in the argument by those who are much closer to Putin now, the securocrats, if you like, the generals, the military commanders and the intelligence officials who have said to Putin, it's about survival now. They have persuaded Putin that the West is out to get him and wants regime change, wants to topple Putin from power, and therefore said that this action is necessary. While those like Kortunov are horrified at the likely cost, not just in terms of deaths, but Russia's standing in the world, its prosperity. So that battle seems to be won in the Kremlin by these hardliners around Putin, and I think that raises some pretty alarming prospects about what is likely to happen next. If those hardliners remain in the ascendancy, which seems most likely, then they will continue pushing Putin to do his worst in Ukraine. And one other point he said, I asked him particularly not just about Putin's state of mind, and you heard as far as he was prepared to go there, which is that Putin just doesn't have the same vision as Kurtunov and others like him. I asked him about whether he would use nuclear weapons. Is he mad enough to do so? And he said he was unequivocal about this. He says if NATO does get involved, for instance, in imposing a no-fly zone, does get drawn in, which he doesn't think is likely, but he says if it does happen, there is no doubt, he says, that Vladimir Putin would consider using nuclear weapons.